All right, you see that car? The blue BMW. It's being pulled over by a police officer. Should be a routine traffic stop. But the motorist, the driver, insists on doing everything wrong and is being as disrespectful and disobedient as he possibly can be. And this ends in the worst possible way. Policing in America, it's always been tough, but now it's, is it worse than ever before? It's very hard to recruit people. Violence against cops are up. The respect for cops for about 50% of the country seems to be non-existent. It's a crisis situation. We thought we'd bring in former sheriff of Milwaukee County, David Clarke, America's sheriff. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
So, look, it seems like we are in a crisis situation. Law enforcement is under fire and attack and ridicule like never before. I had some ideas about how we could possibly, well, look, I'm not qualified. How do we fix this? What's going to happen?
Well, we have to go back to what works. And we know what works because we did it during the middle of the 90s, the 1994 crime bill, authored by none other Joe Biden when he was in the U.S. Senate. And what they did was they finally decided that they'd had enough of this violence that was surging across America, some of the same stuff that's happening right now. And so they tightened everything up. They started to make arrests. They started to put together task forces. And when they arrested these people, they charged them and they held them for the longest period of time allowable by law. And upon sentencing, they were given long sentences. That's because you had the judiciary, you had the prosecutors and the police using the feds and everybody else and all the tools that they offer, everybody doing it at the same time. This happened all across America, and we experienced historic record lows in crime and violence. Then we got away from it, took our pedal off the metal, let the left talk us into goofy policies like behavior modification, second chance for career criminals. And now you're looking at these no bail policies. You got these woke prosecutors that were funded by George Soros that are not charging these dangerous individuals, putting them right back out onto the streets. So all we have to do is pull out that 1994 crime bill, dust it off, start implementing those policies. And you know what? Over time, not overnight, but over time, you'll see a return of historic record lows, calm and tranquility in neighborhoods, safer neighborhoods. That's what has to happen.
What about in some of those neighborhoods when the cops are trying to effect an arrest? You got a bunch of people who break out their cameras and try to get the cops in trouble, or mock them and jeer them and throw bottles at them and stuff like that. We can bring back the law, the 94 crime bill, but that horrible, toxic atmosphere for cops, how do we tackle that one?
Sure. Well, look at the state of Arizona. They just enacted a law that makes it a misdemeanor for an individual to get within a certain amount of distance to a law enforcement officer who's engaged in police work and try to film them. They can be arrested for interfering with that sort of thing. It's a start. You know, right now, everybody's got a cell cam. You're going to have some courts that are going to say, no, that's First Amendment rights, so on and so forth. It's another thing, a form of harassment, but it's another thing the law enforcement officers are going to have to put up with right now in this climate that we're living in. But I would look at that law, and when I saw it, I tweeted and I encouraged other states to take a look at it, to give law enforcement officers some room, for heaven's sakes. That's called the lunge area for law enforcement officers. Someone can quickly get in, strike an officer, take equipment away, so on and so forth. Plus, it takes their attention off the suspect that they're dealing with, because now they have to watch two things, for heaven's sakes, because they don't know if that person is just filming them. They don't know if a sneak attack is going to come. But things like that, I think, would help. You know, there's no magic pill here in this anti-police sentiment and environment we're living in right now, this war on cops. But some policies like that may help a little bit anyway.
Sheriff Clarke, you're so wise and you've got such insight, and I'm hoping you go back into public life. You're out there, you're tweeting, you're America's sheriff, but if Trump comes back, is there a job that you would like in a second Trump administration, or some other Republican's administration?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot a little bit, but that's okay. I've been on the spot before. Look, I'm trying to help any way I can. If a president asks you to serve, you got to step up and you have to serve. So, that's not my motive right now. I'm fighting behind the scenes. I'm trying to assist law enforcement agencies all across the country right now. I was at a law enforcement appreciation event speaking in Houston, Texas. I get to talk to these officers to I tell them, keep your heads held high, keep fighting. I know it's tough, but, better days are ahead. It just doesn't look like it right now. But somebody has to do this job, Greg. This is the front line of law and order. It's the front line of protecting the Constitution, our free way of life. And I'll tell you what, it's getting harder to recruit, as you indicated. But somebody has to do this. And so if we don't have people that support this, including the community, which does support the police, by the way, if you look at the polling, over 60%, even in the black neighborhoods, they support the police. But this anti-cop rhetoric is strong right now. It's still alive, and it has to be beaten back.
I hope you wind up at the FBI. It's just my preference, or the U.S. Marshals maybe, but heading the FBI, that is, Sheriff Clarke. Appreciate it so much. Go to americasheriff.com, on Twitter, @Sheriff Clarke with an E. Thank you very much, sir, and we'll be right back.